Back again with another Jefe's Airsoft upgrade, and we're throwing in the smooth pull trigger bar into the AAP01. Again, he sent me these to test out in my TP22 and see which ones were compatible and which weren't out of all of his AAP01 parts, and specifically, this was one of the ones that was not compatible. So I said I'm going to throw it into my custom AAP, and I'm excited to see what it looks like and what it feels like. So originally, first we're just going to give the trigger a pull, and we'll see if there's any difference whatsoever. First, I think what we'll do is we'll pop this guy open. If I can get into it. Take a look at that. I love the cutouts in it, the skeletonization. And if we get a magnet, we'll take a look. I believe that... So this guy is not stainless steel, some sort of aluminum. I think the stock trigger bars, if I have an extra one we could test, are steel. No, they're not. These are aluminum as well. And then this is the upgraded trigger bar from CTM. These are steel. However, one thing that I've noticed with these is they are thicker than the standard trigger bar. So on some of like the CTM grips, they have a hard time, and some other modified grips, they have a hard time. If you have any hammer housings, like the steel hammer housings, these don't slide very well between the inside of a grip and the inside of the hammer housing, so that's a pain in the butt. And then you have this guy, which is just all sorts of weird looking and cool. It is definitely a little bit thicker than the stock trigger bar, but it's thinner than the upgraded steel trigger bar from CTM. So that's cool. You'll also notice that what I've noticed with a lot of Jeff's parts is they are much different in some ways than the standard parts. So this little activator here that pulls the disconnector away from the hammer and allows the hammer to fire is definitely much larger than the other two, and it has a much more aggressive incline, so that should probably increase to a smoother pull. And it also looks like he shaved off any areas where would cause excess friction. So if you can see right here, it drops down a little bit right under the spring catch or the spring attachment part. Over here, it doesn't. It only comes up where the spring attachment piece is. It doesn't drop down in the bar of the trigger, so that's cool. And it also has this big concave here to decrease friction when pulling against the side body or the inner wall of the hammer housing. That's cool. Okay. Let's pop this guy apart. Hopefully this goes down pretty smoothly. I'm interested to see how it works with this trigger. So all we're going to have to do is remove everything. So we'll do that now. We'll first attack the safety. Pull that up, pull it out. And we'll push all of our pins out as well. We'll start with the hammer pins. And thankfully we did not lose the spring there. We'll just pop that aside. Pop this pin out. And then we'll attack all three screws. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Perfect. And just be careful, this spring is going to come completely loose, and so is the spring that holds in the bolt release that we installed last time. Just be careful with those. You don't want any of those flying off and getting lost. Toss this guy aside. Pull that spring off. Put this spring aside. Bolt release our trigger housing, and we have to get into the trigger bar. So with this trigger bar, I actually have the upgraded trigger, so it's not a pin. This one's going to have a little grub screw that's excessively long that we're going to have to get to. And that should just unscrew from this side. It should fit just fine on the upgraded trigger bar, so we need a smaller Allen key. That guy should do. Pull that guy out. Don't lose that, and that just pulls off like so. Now, just a closer look. There's definitely a bunch of different areas that are shaved off and bent slightly differently and add to less friction on the side. That's going to be cool. And I'm excited to see if it sits in here nice and stable. So on the upgraded trigger, there is a decent bit of wiggle room, but you can also notice the same thing, I believe, with this trigger, or this trigger bar. There's less wiggle room, but there's still wiggle room. This will just drop in this orientation, and we're going to try and line up the holes and drop the grub screw in. It's a little harder to do. The pin's always easier than the screw because you don't want to strip it. There's no way we just got that through first try. Play lotto. Perfect. And that guy is on there nice and smooth. Next, to just reinstall everything, we're going to pull this little wonky spring like we did last time, set it up so that curved end is on the bottom on that little nub, with the arc facing on the top on the left side. Drop this around the trigger. This is the easiest way to do it. And then drop the entire thing into the trigger housing like that. Get your beefy hands on in there. Throw the entire thing into the AAP01 holding it together. And everything should be in place with the spring on the bottom of that nub and up inside that channel on the left, if you can see that. Now what we need to do is throw the trigger spring on. Hopefully this fits nice and snug. It should sit with the open end at the facing at the bottom on this protrusion, like that. If I can get it on. It's a little bit more of a snug fit on that side. It's not particularly a bad thing, but it's a little harder to get on than the stock trigger bar. Come on. The reason I haven't thrown any pins in yet is because we have to actually get this to sit on the other side as well. I'll show you what I mean in a second. All right, there we are. Cool. Now we have to take this spring with it on the right side for that protrusion, and we have to get it to sit on this pin. And I just usually pull the trigger back, pull the trigger bar up a little bit, and at the same time, we'll just slot that spring on that nub. Push everything back down, and while holding this piece down, you should notice that there's some tension to this trigger bar. You're golden. We'll drop the pin in. You may have to move the trigger around just a little bit. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt, but it shouldn't take any force, so make sure you wiggle it around first. Perfect. Pull our new Allen key out. We will install our screws now before we get to the hammer unit. Be careful, don't strip these. The bottom one just goes into a plastic channel, so it's easy to strip. And then these guys go into the right and left side. These are a little less easy to strip, but still pretty easy, so be careful. Just tighten them down until they fight you, and then stop. I don't find these are screws that back out frequently. You can throw a little Loctite on them. Okay. We're going to get our hammer unit back together, that spring, and drop the entire thing with the trigger bar up on the right side of the hammer like that. And then it should just drop right into place. To get it to seat all the way down, push the back takedown button in, and everything should be lined up with those holes. Barbell pin first at the top, and then the stubby one at the bottom. Make sure these guys are flush. And then we'll throw our safety lever in from the right side with the up logo facing at the top. Cool. And that should actuate just fine. Look at that. That's awesome. Safety works. Safety's free. That is funky. It's definitely a smoother pull. It's lighter, if that makes sense. Oh, kind of, actually, there's a little bit of tension there. I don't know if that's the trigger or not. Interesting. Let's see. Yeah, it's not resetting all the way. I don't know if you see that. It doesn't want to reset all the way. I don't know if maybe that's because of the trigger. We'll give it a little time to wear in. Let's throw this guy on and see how it functions. So pulls back. Does drop the hammer. Drops the hammer just fine. How's our reset? Interesting. That is super odd. I don't know why the trigger doesn't want to reset all the way. I'm assuming it's the trigger spring. I may need to replace that out. Maybe the trigger bar spring has just gotten loose over time. I don't know. I'm going to try and shorten the trigger pull too. Let's see what we can do. We have to pry that guy outwards a little bit. So there's a screw on the front of my trigger. I don't know if you can see that up in there, that we can use to shorten our trigger pull. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I wish it was accessible when this guy was closed. Okay, so I finally adjusted it a little bit more and it's so much better now. See that? Check out this trigger pull that I fixed. So it's super short. All you have to do is have that much take up and then it breaks the wall. And then the reset is super short too. It follows my finger perfectly now. There it is. It's super short, so much better. So I think a lot of the problem was that little nub on the back of the trigger was having a hard time slipping past the, I guess, plastic of the grip. And now I'm having no problems with the travel of the trigger bar. I think it was the trigger having some issues initially. It's also worn in a little bit, and I think it was just, again, pushing against the plastic on the inside of the wall. It feels so much better now. I will say it's not like a noticeable difference, truly, when it comes to, okay. There it is. Keep in mind, I'm going to have to Loctite this in place because that screw is going to move around a lot while I'm just pulling it. But I'm glad that I got to test it out a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't say I notice a huge difference in the trigger pull. It might be a little bit better if I had his trigger spring in here, and I obviously put that in my TP22, so that's not going to happen. It is an awesome upgrade, and I actually think it's better than the steel one that's from CTM, just because it's not as tight of a fit, especially when you use some of the aftermarket grips. And if you wanted to use one of those steel housings as well, this guy did not work for me. I had some serious troubles with it when I was working with it inside of a CTM grip, so I would stay away from this. I've had a lot of troubles with a lot of the CTM products so far. Specifically, their hammer system was an issue for me. This guy is just slightly off and it causes problems. I think Jefe makes a ton of phenomenal parts, and again, it works. It's a great trigger bar. It looks awesome. It's super light. I love the gold on the inside, especially if you're one of those people that just like upgrading things to upgrade them. But I don't particularly notice the smooth pull, per se. Maybe that's just me and I can't feel the difference, but I didn't notice an unsmooth pull with the stock trigger bar. I will say this is likely, being that it's an upgrade, going to be much less likely to wear down over time than this guide is. Yeah, that's the install for the upgraded trigger bar from Jefe's Airsoft. Thank you for sending that beast over to me, dude. Appreciate it. Sorry it didn't fit in the TP22.